absolutely unrealistic gap for the Europe to close and unnecessary. And I'm afraid that CE might be forced to buy more fossil fuels that will lock them in and really avert the energy transition. So we really have to think about the trend. So I would say that what does US-EU trade deal means, and the China, Russia, India realignment are two key things we have to definitely follow closely.
Before we move to Central Europe, once again, I would like to ask you, and you mentioned it, the power of Siberia too. Do you think, will there be a power of Siberia too? Russians declared it very enthusiastically, of course, because they need somewhere to export the gas, but the Chinese are more reserved. So do you think it's just a propaganda, or will there be this infrastructure project?
I mean, they are really good at propaganda. So even if they are putting there as a part of the misinformation, it already sends so much signals to the gas prices. So they've already done the job if they were just like portraying this is going to happen. I think if it's going to happen, whether or not, of course, I don't know, but China has such an upper hand in the negotiations for the Siberia Power 2. Basically, it can tell Russia, you have to play with our game. You have to give us the prices that you domestically charge in Russia. So I think it is possible, but it's going to be quite not as economically viable for Russia because how China has an upper hand in the negotiations as Russia probably envisages.
Okay, let's move to Central Europe because this is a huge politics. How can CE member states stay competitive and with that meet the decarbonization goals as well?
As I said in the beginning, I think, so this year when the Ursula von der Leyen's second term started, it was all about realization. We have put so many regulations, we cannot even find ourselves out in our labyrinth, so let's try to put something over on the top of it that will help us to put all the other things together. So now, of course, this term is going to be dominated by clean industrial deals and its many initiatives. And I think it's going to be, and especially we also have multi-annual financial framework, MFF, discussions happening where every country will be trying to take its beat. And of course, with defense being incredibly high on the agenda, it's very crucial that CE voice is not being lost in the conversation. I think one thing probably that I will, or two things I will point out. One is being realistic on the targets. We all know how the panacea of the hydrogen went down in terms of the EU hydrogen strategy and some of the unrealistic targets. Being really pragmatic, what we can source domestically is incredibly important. I work a lot in Poland, and I still see in Poland the promises of hydrogen-powered buses and cars. This is not economically viable, and we should not be really spending our money on that. Let's decarbonize our grid first, and let's use the hydrogen where it gives most economic and emissions reduction benefit, which is the hard to abate industries. The second one I would say is, so one is being realistic. The second one is strengthen the cross-border cooperation. A lot of things that we will be doing within the clean industrial deal will be hinging on how the countries in the CE cooperate. And as an example, for instance, carbon capture and storage or any other clean infrastructure project. As you know, under the Net Zero Industry Act, the European Union level, two countries in the region, which is Poland and Romania, have some of the highest targets for developing the CO2 storage by 2035. And this will require a lot of cross-border coordination. So what we have been doing at coordination also with oil and gas industry, because oil and gas industry actually possesses the key know-how and expertise for subsurface data, and the same goes to the geothermal as well. So what we have been doing a lot at Clean Air Task Force is to bring the concept of these industrial clusters, which I think is very amenable in the CE space, where basically by portraying where the biggest industrial emitters, your fertilizer, chemicals, or others are, and basically trying to see and urge the governments, project developers, and off-takers to develop cross-border infrastructure projects, not only on the transmission lines, but also on the CCS and hydrogen pipelines. So to sum up, I would say that being realistic of what can be achieved and trying to push back a little bit at the EU level as well of this Germany-France dichotomy that sometimes dominates the narrative, and second, have more cross-border coordination projects, especially on clean infrastructure.
Thank you. And due to you, what are the key barriers for accelerating clean technology development here in our region?
Many. There are so many, honestly. I think just the starting point of Central and Eastern Europe is unfortunately, has not been the best, in a sense that we have the issues about the aging infrastructure. Some of them has been, of course, the communist legacy. We have draining workforce. I think a lot of people, especially far right in Europe, talk about the migration, but we don't really talk about brain drain that has happened and is happening within the Europe, where a lot of people are leaving Central and Eastern Europe and are going in Western Europe. So how to maintain the momentum? And I think that the promise of clean tech manufacturing opportunity in CE could be one of those things where we can say to the young people, you know, this is the place where the future AI or the clean tech is created, so please come back. And of course, the fiscal constraints. Everybody is fiscally challenged, but I think in CE countries, balancing those so many priorities, especially when you're bordering Russia and you have defense always as the first priority, is incredibly difficult. So I think it is very critical, especially at the EU level, to make sure that we understand properly some of the things that are coming through. For instance, one of the examples is the Action Plan for Affordable Energy that aims to decrease the electricity prices. And as you know, in CE, we have one of the highest retail electricity prices. So the newly proposed solution from the European Commission is the tripartite contract, which will put together the public authorities, the industrial off-takers, and the project developers. And the first two projects is going to be concentrated on offshore wind and storage. So I think the countries which have the offshore wind potential, for instance, Romania or Bulgaria or Poland, really have to come together and think how they can tap into this opportunity. So fiscal constraint, and the second one that I have to definitely point out is the institutional capacity. What I am afraid of, and working a lot with the governments in CE, is that right now we are entering the stage where everything that has to be regulated has been out there at the European Commission. I don't expect in the coming years there will be many new rules, right? From the next year, a hardcore implementation stage will start, which means a lot of stress tests for the institutions and the governments at the CE level. And having seen the turnover and the political short-termism, which is very characteristic to the countries in the region, but also beyond, I think it is incredibly important, especially for carrying out the long-term projects like nuclear, hydrogen, CCS, and many others, that politicians get over this political short-termism and use strategic foresight to plan those long-term projects.
And what would your advice be by combating the misinformation, for example, or information? For example, Slovakia is very conservative, and we are afraid of many things. For example, wind power. If there is an announcement that we are going to build some turbines, there is always a huge pushback because of many informations that most of them are not true. So how to deal with this phenomenon? Is it by leading by example, for example, to build some modern infrastructure and show, yeah, it is working, or it's a long-lasting communication and explanation?
I don't want to say an example. I will say a country. It has happened in Hungary. We have invited a Hungarian project developer. I will not name the project as well, to give story about the public acceptance and social acceptance for a particular project they have successfully deployed. And their answer was that asking the public opinion about this particular project is like asking a 5-year-old what they want to have for a meal. And this is so scary in a sense that this kind of response is coming from within the European Union. And by the end of the day, especially in this part of Europe where we have the highest number of the coal regions, the just transition is the core of everything that we are trying to do. We see that far right is on the right, and they are using some of their sentiments very helpfully, actually, to halt the energy transition. Unless we are working and communicate at the level of the communities, nothing that we are doing and we are communicating right now, ESG doesn't matter, nuclear doesn't matter, nothing matters if this is not translatable to the community level. For instance, in the US, we have a very, very strong track record on working on the community benefits, especially for the projects that are being deployed on the tribal land, which basically means going and asking to the local government to devise specific incentives for the local communities so that they can be more amenable to the new projects. So I think devising the communication specifically targeted for the communities, devising the plans that includes and is embedding community benefits is incredibly critical. I think one thing that we have done also, and I would be also happy to roll out maybe in Slovakia at some point, we have contracted a social public polling company which has basically polled most of the coal regions within the Central and Eastern Europe and asked the people in the polling if there were an initiative of deploying X, Y, Z number of clean energy projects in your vicinity, would you be amenable on X, Y, Z? So now we have basically data from the people showing that, let's say in the Silesia region in Poland, people would be more amenable to see wind versus nuclear. So there are kind of things also that really help people feel that they are being heard and also help policymakers devise the policies which will not get the immediate pushback from the public.
Thank you very much. I appreciated your answers. Let's continue with the infrastructure by itself. I would like to ask Anna you this question because I would like to know, is there a place for gas storages in the future world?
Yes, and I'm not
Thank you.
and I'm not saying that only because I work for gas storage, but actually this question is the question that our shareholders asked our commercial department just recently, because they wanted to know if they still should invest in renewing our technology and prolonging the lifespan of our gas storages. So our analysts looked in the data and they came to a conclusion that in line with the European Union policy, yes, the gas consumption will decline, but the need for flexibility will actually increase. Why this is important for us as a gas storage system operator is that we are the one who are providing the most flexibility to the market. We are providing the flexibility not only to the gas system, but also currently and growing also to the electricity system. What does it mean? It means that usually the consumption of gas is stable, but then you have times when you need more gas. For example, in January it will be cold spell, for example, so we need much more heating, so we will need more gas. And this peak, the difference between the peak and the usual consumption is the need for flexibility. And this gas comes from the gas storage. But as we said, the gas consumption will decrease. Nevertheless, the consumption of electricity will inevitably increase. And especially in the western part of Europe, it will be mostly the renewable. And we saw already in the recent years, even so-called Dunkelflaute, what you might heard about. It means it was a situation in Germany when there was no sun, so no electricity from sun. There was no wind, so no electricity from wind. But the people needed and the industry needed the electricity. So what happened was actually that the gas-fired power plants needed to be turned on. For that, they needed gas, they needed it fast, and they needed it really in a short period of time. And here comes the gas storage, which could provide this gas in a very instant time and help and enable also the consumer of electricity to use electricity in the time when it's needed, and the renewables, for example, cannot provide the electricity in that time. So this means that the consumption of the electricity from renewable or also from nuclear, it doesn't matter, because you never build your production units to cover all the peaks throughout the year. For all of that, you will need flexibility. And the other thing what I would like to point out is that you may think, okay, well, we have batteries. But the batteries are not comparable at all with the gas storage. There is no currently available possibility which provides gas storage. In electricity, batteries, you can store energy for maybe kilowatts, megawatts, few hours, maybe days. But when you talk about storages, you talk about terawatt hours. and you can store energy for months and for years. So that's why we really believe that there is a future for gas storage in the future, even decarbonized world.
This was another question is a long one, so bear with me because I want to get through that. Gas storage facilities are widely regarded, and you mentioned it, as key instruments of ensuring security of supply and backup as well in case that something else fails. Just recently, the EU published an amendment of gas regulation ensuring a sufficient filling level across EU. However, some market participants argue that imposing a legal obligation to fill storages may not be the most effective approach and could place the undue burden at stakeholders. What is your perspective at this issue?
So as I explained already, gas storage provides this flexibility value. But on the other hand, storages are the most important tool for security of supply. What does it mean? We can regard gas storages as insurance. And as usually our CEO is saying, you don't pay for insurance when your house is burning. So if there is a fire, you need to pay for insurance beforehand. And it is the same with the storages. So if you want to make sure that you have enough gas when it is needed, for example, in January, when it will be cold and you need more gas, you need to fill it in advance. Now, usually how the storages are filled or who is responsible for the filling of the storages, it's a voluntary basis, it's on the traders, and they will fill the storages only in case, usually if they are not responsible big supplier, only in case when they can make money from that. So they look, if the gas prices in summer are low, the gas is cheap, they buy, they store, and then they sell during the winter when it's expensive. And in the difference of that, they can make money. So they follow the summer-winter spread, so-called. In today's situation, nevertheless, we see that due to all the geopolitics and all the situation on the market, the summer prices of gas are almost the same as in winter. So there is no incentive, actually, for the traders to store gas, so which may lead into a situation where we will not have gas in the gas storages. So we are not paying our insurance, because why should they pay if they don't have the obligation and they don't make money from that? We have, for example, a gas storage in Germany, and we see there it's much more obvious than in Slovakia at the moment. We have filled our storages only into around 25%, and the capacity is not sold because nobody wants to buy it, because nobody wants to bear the cost of that insurance. That's why I believe that when setting up a framework, especially thinking about security of supply, it needs to be a balance and to create a framework which will really balance the market and non-market measures to make the most benefits out of that. But somebody will have to pay for that insurance if we really want to make sure we will have gas here when we need it, especially when we take into consideration that there is no production in Slovakia, or almost zero, there is a very little one. So that doesn't cover anything, and we need to bring and we need to rely on the LNG. So it takes time, and it costs money to bring it to Slovakia.
So this is the right in this point of time how it works like, but we will see what the future and the technology will bring. But the European Commission is currently revising the security of supply framework for both gas and electricity, and I would like to know, what do you think? How should the well-functioning energy system across the whole Europe looks like in the future?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult question, actually. I think everything what I already explained should be taken into consideration. I think, firstly, what we need to take into consideration, and it is not under the current legislation, is the growing interlinkage between the electricity and gas system. Also, we need to really make sure that there is no one-size-fits-all approach, because all the countries and regions are a little bit different. Nevertheless, some rules need to be stated on the European level because, for example, the gas storages, they are geological structures. So in some parts of the Europe, you have a lot of storages. In some part of Europe, you don't have storages. So you really need to balance across Europe. And when speaking about gas storages, the good setup between market and non-market measures will be important, and especially it will be important to really make sure that all who benefit from the insurance value provided by the gas storage would bear the cost of that. So the socialization of the cost should go across and not only to few like households or only to industry, to everybody who really benefits it, so that we avoid free riding in the security of supply framework for the future.
Thank you very much. And let's move to Kateřina, and I would like to know your perspective. What are the biggest barriers to sustainability in Slovak industry? Is it technology that we mentioned already? Is it financing, the cost of energy? We also spoke about that. Or is it the question of the mindset of the management, for example? What's the barrier?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. I would start with the technology. I don't think that technology is a problem at the moment. It's already on the table. We know how to use the waste heat, how to use how to use in your buildings heat pumps, how to electrify the processes. And it's already way beyond as it was 10 years ago. Now it's the biggest barrier, I think, that the mindset and the financing and the balance between them. First of all, yet we have already 20 years of emission trading system on the table, so we are paying for the greenhouse gases. And there will be a CBAM in a year, in upcoming year. So those are also the elements which come into the overall calculation. And I think that we, or the industry or the companies, they usually forget about that there is a price for not taking care for the future. And when they put it into the calculation, I think that it somehow starts to work and a nice project can be done. I will follow with some examples. There is a low-hanging fruit, which is in the buildings, energy savings in the buildings. My colleague said once, it's not low-hanging fruit, it's the fruit lying on the floor. It was meant like that we have in Slovak Climate Initiative, for example, calculated that if we really renovate all the buildings with deep renovation, when they make it sense, or just renovate it, we will gain 18% of the energy which will be not used anymore because it's saved. And it was also calculated, it's more than 800 million euros. And this is a very nice number, so let's start with the buildings. And also industry and companies, they do not wait until there will be the nice atmosphere and everything will work and everything will be calculated up to every cent. And because we are heading to climate neutrality in 2050, also some industries keep this goal. And for example, when we imagine steel, producers, they can produce even green steel right now in Slovakia and use it in construction. And they set the goal that they will achieve 70% savings in greenhouse emissions until 2024. And they even were able to save more, 76%, in comparison to 2019. And really there is the idea to be climate neutral, and their production site should be climate neutral until 2050. And this is not the only example. We have very energy demanding facilities like brick production. Producer of the bricks, the drying process is very much energy demanding, and this producer in Zlaté Moravce, they decided to change their policy and their mindset and to invest into the emission and save them in their facility. So in this case, they were able to save, I think, 60% only by electrifying the processes in the facility. And also there is an intention to be climate neutral in 2045. One more example is in the cement factory, which is also highly energy demanding. And this cement factory based in Slovakia also is able to produce some of the electricity which is needed for their processes by photovoltaics and their installation. They gained by this way 8% of the electricity, and this number was 10% higher than they ever expected. And also there is a payback, what they counted for 4 up to 6 years. And I think that's a very nice example of when there is a good mindset in the management, when you take seriously the cost of the emissions, because the carbon has a price, into account, then everything can be done.
And once again, let's talk about the rules and regulations. What kind of rules should the state set so that the sustainability will be advantageous and not a burden? And the other part, or the second part of the question is, in the case that the company wants to be proactive and doesn't want to wait for the rules, what should this company or the companies do?
Well, when we want to make sustainability to gain the winners or to be achieved within the winners, I think that rules must to be done like that the right decisions have to be also the easy one. So that we have to, or the government should set the rules like they are clear, they are bounded to some timeline, and this certainty makes also the right decision for the industry and for the companies to prepare nice project and change their mindset from, hey, we are using fossil fuels to we want to be climate neutral facility. And there are many examples where we can look for and what have to be done to be this truth, so make it right, to make it easy. But the most important thing is that when we have this Fit for 55 and lots of directives coming out of there, there is an implementation in the countries, in the local level. So let's not water them down. Let's make them properly, and then we will see, for example, in the buildings that from the 1st of January 2028, new public buildings, and from the 1st of January 2030, all buildings should be net zero. So one problem is saved. Also, the financing should be balanced and should be also connected to the area where it's really needed. In case of buildings, it can be when we have the worst building stock. I mean on the energy basis. So also, let's renovate those buildings. Let's link the financing to this sector. This is the first thing. Another thing, it was mentioned here, and I think it's very important, it's green public procurement. Nowadays, it works in Slovakia like that you can win the procurement when you give the lowest price. But in case you want to achieve something, you have to make the procurement like that you can achieve the goal by the project or the renovation or whatever you want to procure. So that this mindset has to be changed as well. and will open the space for the nice project. And another thing is also, I personally mentioned it, that the carbon has a price and it will rise for the next year, and also the carbon availability will be lower and lower. And now there is a emission trading system 1, there will be an emission trading system 2, so everything makes altogether sense to bring us to the climate neutrality. To wrap it all, or to answer for your second question, what can companies or industry do right now? When they're not brave enough, they can start with short-term projects. They can start with cooperation with R&D, research and development. They can simply start the pilots and to see how it works, if they really calculate everything what they should calculate, and also to think about if they are going to be the partner in the supply chain for the future, if they have the customers who are still interested in the product which are not low carbon, and see it as an opportunity and risk management, not as ideology.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk, the last question, let's talk about the commodities as well, because we spoke that Europe is still hooked on gas, and for foreseeable future probably will be. But what about oil? What is the future of the oil in the whole system? Is there any future?
Oil and gas, I think that they're sister and brother. So for the future and looking towards climate neutrality 2050, I think that it should be not a fuel anymore. It can be in the feedstock storages, it can be somewhere. It can be used in some processes where it's necessary, where it's absolutely needed, but it should be used less and less in the electrification, in the heating our buildings, in the processes as such, for sure. And as I said, it's everywhere in the system. When we take into account directives, when we take into account emission trading system, it's heading towards some kind of gas and oil usage, but for sure, very much.
Thank you, Katarzyna. And we start with the questions that you did send throughout Slido. The first one is probably to you, Anna. Can you share if there are any carbon capture storage? Oh, I'm not sure whether it's... no, I thought that it's capture storage for the gas, but capture storage, carbon capture storage projects in the pipeline in Slovakia, or what is the potential for such project in Slovakia? So, who will answer?
I can start.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe. Okay, so what I can say, in our company, we are looking into a lot of different kind of projects, including carbon capture storage, to really find out if it would work out. But for any new project, you need essentially 3 things. Especially when you talk about the storage, you need the right geology. So for that, you really need to do your research. If you have a geology sufficient to realize this type of project, then you need a framework, legislative framework for that. And of course, you need a business case for that. Without the business case, nobody invest your money into any kind of project. To say really one concrete project in carbon capture storage, I don't know about any concrete projects now, which would be in a stage where you can talk about it, but maybe the ladies know from...
Yeah, so on the carbon capture and storage, to get more accurate information, definitely I suggest Clean Air Task Force has the comprehensive worldwide map of all the CCS projects that is happening in our different stage of FID, including in Europe, and the storage potential. Sometimes getting the storage potential from the mining companies and from the geologic departments of the various Ministry of Climate and Environment is quite tricky, but we have this, so definitely I am encouraging you to look at it. As Anna was mentioning, the critical thing is creating the business case. We have also published just 2 days ago a big report looking at creating business case in Central and Eastern Europe with one key caveat. One of the key things that we are advocating and really pushing in Central and Eastern Europe is, and it's translated in Slovakia and in the neighboring countries as well, developing the onshore storage. Currently, what happens with lots of captured CO2, and of course with Net Zero Industry Act and other legislations, we will eventually have to capture CO2, especially from the cement and other hard-to-abate industries. So because we don't have onshore storage, most of the time this captured CO2 gets on the rail, goes, for instance, to Gdansk, and then the Baltic Sea, and then goes to the North Sea. So most of the captured CO2 from Central and Eastern Europe is going to North Sea. And the countries at the North Sea are incredibly smart because they are making a very valuable and credible business case out of it. So in the long run, if the Central and Eastern Europe does not allow onshore storage of the captured CO2, we will become the clients of the North Sea. So this is incredibly critical. Countries which are at the sea, the Baltic or the Black, have to definitely look into the offshore storage, but even more so understand how the onshore storage can be permitted, especially for the landlocked countries like Slovakia or Czechia. And that's what I was mentioning in the beginning, that's why this cross-border infrastructure is so critical, because CCS will not be bound to any single country. This will require massive cross-border infrastructure, both offshore and onshore.
Thank you very much. Another question. How is the sentiment around nuclear changing in the West Europe in light of energy security? What does this mean for Slovakia? Tamara?
I can get the first part, and for
Okay.
Slovakia, the colleagues will be better positioned, I think. Kind of this part of the awakening of the European Union that I have mentioned in the beginning was also like, oh, you know what, we cannot just rely only on the couple of options. We also need to warm up to other technologies. So, for instance, last year, we saw the first ever SMR industry alliance that was never thought of. We are actually, Central Eastern Europe's voice was incredibly important to pushing the through. What we see in Western Europe is that, for instance, Belgium, Netherlands have changed their mind. Even Italy, that has a moratorium on nuclear energy, is reconsidering to take out this moratorium. Germany, who is like the most, I live in Berlin, so I know how annoying it can be, even the taboo to talk about nuclear in German policy. But now the Germans and Merz is like, okay, we are not going to consider reopening the nuclear power plants that we so unintentionally closed, but we are not going to go against it, at least, and we are not going to block the initiative at the European level, which is already a big win. And we, of course, see SMRs emerging, the small modular reactors, as this next thing where people are like less afraid because they are smaller. Quite frankly, they think that okay, they maybe have a chance in our decarbonized future. So I think there's a lot of good developments there. One caveat is that where we should go, what are the project developers out there? France's EDF is trying to position itself as very bullish, but it's not that, it doesn't have enough supply chains to kind of supply all the demand that Europe has right now for the nuclear energy. We have Koreans who are putting their efforts in there. US, Westinghouse is quite bullish as well in the space. And we have a lot of things also on the SMRs from the NewScale and others. Rolls-Royce from the Britain is especially bullish in Czechia. And we see the diversification of the countries, which is already good, at least that we are moving away from Rosatom. Even Hungary is now considering the US contract instead of Rosatom. So it's good trend in a sense that we see lifting of moratoriums, changing the shifts, and also diversification of the supply chains in terms of project developers. So that's kind of good trends, but how it translates to Slovakia, maybe colleagues can...
Anna, Katerina, would you like to add something to that? The Slovak impact of this warming up to the nuclear energy?
I really can't add anything. The truth is that we need more electricity more and more in the future. The question is, how do we produce it? How do we balance it? renewables is not only wind or photovoltaics, it's also water, it's also geothermal, and there are some resources in Slovakia as well, so it can help to balance also to the electrification. I would say that in Slovakia we have no clue how much electricity do we need in 10 years, 20 years. So there can be a calculation done like that, and we can somehow stick into it and try to develop all the projects up onto this. It's called strategy, and that's maybe all from my side.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move further, because you mentioned already huge demand, and exactly AI will have a huge demand on cloud and supercomputing capacity, and a lot of energy will be needed for it. Is Europe ready? Tamara says no.
No.
No, okay. So, okay, what shall the Europe do, and how shall the Europe prepare itself for this future? Because AI is coming. Actually, it is already here. So.
Well, my view is that nobody has any clue, to be honest, about AI. So sometimes I find those panels about the AI and supercharging AI a little bit funny, because it's just so much assumptions based. However, what I would like to see in Europe, we have a new commission is also putting together the AI strategy, so I think they are getting serious on that. What I would wish to see at some point in Europe is kind of the model that is being done in the United States, where the hyperscalers actually are very much involved in ramping up the AI, because the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsofts of their world obviously need AI and are having embedded in their work. So very often you see in certain states or the cross-state initiatives where various hyperscalers are coming together and having the direct PPA contracts with the nuclear developers, the geothermal developers, or the renewables, or something else. So I would like to see this kind of model being replicated in sea, and especially in the Baltics. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania actually has a very good potential on data and AI, and understanding how to aggregate the demand by pulling the hyperscalers and making this an interesting area for investors would be, I think, worth considering.
I can add to that from the energy perspective point of view. I think as Europe, we need to really focus on competitiveness. We really need to be competitive throughout the whole value chain, production of electricity, storage of electricity, services, whatever we provide, because elsewhere, all the capacity and energy and everything what is necessary for AI would be realized somewhere else than in Europe.
Thank you very much. And that was actually the last question because of the time. So once again, thank you very much. Huge applause for my guests. Tamara, Anna, Kateřina, thank you very much appreciate it. And we gonna move on. Ďakujem veľmi pekne, nech sa páči, ja vám môžem aj pomôcť. Ale oni sú tak agilné a rýchle, že ani nestíham, takže super, výborne. No a my sa posúvame k poslednému bodu nášho dnešného stretnutia, poslednému organizovanému v zmysle panelu. V tomto prípade to bude taký hybridný model, pretože časť našich panelistov bude prítomná, časť bude online, takže to pekne krásne poprepájame. Začneme teda tými panelistami, ktorí tu prítomní budú, a ešte samozrejme som vám dlžný ten topik, pretože pozrieme sa na inovácie a pozrieme sa na Green Tech a na všetko to, čo by malo pomôcť v rámci tranzície, v rámci samozrejme udržateľnosti, v rámci envirovíziev a tak ďalej, takže o tom sa budeme rozprávať práve teraz. Som veľmi rád, že tu osobne môžem privítať pani Zuzanu Kaparovú, Head of EIB Group Office in Slovakia. Dobrý deň. Hello. Taktiež prítomný je pán Martin Venhart, prezident Slovenskej akadémie vied. Nový prezident Slovenskej akadémie vied. Zdravím vás, dobrý deň. A keďže samozrejme som spomínal, že máme tu aj dvoch našich speakerov, ktorí budú na diaľku, tak tým prvým je pán Jan Dusík, Deputy Director General from DG Klima European Commission. Dobrý deň na diaľku.
Dobrý deň.
Dobrý deň. And the last but not least, Mauro Pisu, Senior Economist from OECD. Hopefully we're gonna connect with him as well. Hopefully he's gonna be there.
I'm here.
Yeah, you're here? Okay,
I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, great. Great to see you. So the
morning.
connection is okay. It's working. Yeah, najskôr ešte, ale poprosím, before we start, yeah, one obligatory picture, at least. Are we able to put both gentlemen into the LED screen? Is it possible? Or not? That would be a nice perk, but I'm not sure. Okay, we will not push it. Okay, so at least like this. Yeah, we are improvising. We are trying to do our best. Zase sa, ja mám tam... Aha, druhého. OK, tak je tu požiadavka na prehodenie hlavy. Ja by som poprosil teraz pána Dusíka, keby sme mohli vyťahnuť. Pracujeme, varíme, ale nie, toto nám nepomôže. Skúsme len pána Dusíka len tak dať ešte kvôli fotke, aby sme mali do vianočného kalendára, keď budeme rozposielať kolegom. Nie? Nepodarí sa tam pán Dusík dať ako popred? Pracujeme na tom, tak možno, že to... OK. To je pán Mauro, to už ho poznáme. Dobre.
Asi si nezasloužím být na vánočním kalendáři.
Okay. Teraz môžeme, výborne, super. Skvelé, ďakujem veľmi pekne. To sme zvládli a ideme veľmi rýchlo ďalej. A pán Dusík, som rád, že vás tam nechali, pretože rovno prvá otázka je priamo na vás. Budeme sa rozprávať teda s vami ako zástupcom Európskej komisie. How do initiative like the EU emission trading system, clean industrial deal and the future competitiveness fund stimulate innovation and fill the gaps in green tech?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Sorry I cannot be with you in person in Bratislava. I would very much like to. But let me go straight into the topic. So we have 20 years of experience with the EU emission trading system, and it has delivered significant reduction in emissions, and it is working, and it is an inspiration for many systems around the world. These days we see more than 70 different carbon pricing systems around the world. And we also see that the potential of carbon markets is evolving and increasing. And all in all, basically, this is the tool that you can generate the funding for decarbonization. The tool that the funding that comes from the private sector that the public sector would never be able to accumulate. So we have this experience. We see that it's working and it's delivering the reduction in emissions. And it is moving forward. It is moving with the allowances being purchased for also the industry sectors. There will be the next phase of the ETS that will address the buildings and transport, and all that with a purpose to decrease the emissions where it makes most economic sense. It is also funding not just decarbonization at the national level, but also the instruments at European level. Currently, we have the Innovation Fund that is supporting innovative projects. It finances the Modernization Fund that has national envelopes for the countries. And in the future, we will have the Competitiveness Fund and something which we called in the Clean Industrial Deal, the Industrial Decarbonization Bank, where we are expecting to have altogether 100 billion euros available for financing decarbonization, and very much thanks to the continuous carbon pricing. And this is what the Clean Industrial Deal is looking at: how to untap that potential, how to also deal with the challenging situation with the energy prices, how to make energy more affordable, and how to stimulate the innovative projects and achieve advancing of the emission reductions. Essentially, we are looking at two types of sectors, and maybe we will get into that later. We are looking at the energy-intensive industries, and we are looking at those who have a clear potential for the clean tech. And the Clean Industrial Deal is a combination of addressing both at the same time. So the winners and the ones who need some support, the hard to abate and energy intensive industries.
Okay, and let's stick with them because the question is what specific opportunities do you see for hard-to-abate energy-intensive sectors, and how can Europe lead in creating markets for low-carbon products?
Yes, there's a number of instruments, and I mentioned this is all captured in the Clean Industrial Deal. Following the adoption of the Clean Industrial Deal, there has been a series of strategic dialogues that the Commission is running with the different industrial sectors. It started with the automotive, the steel. Steel and aluminium, it goes into the chemical sector. The cars have now had a specific dialogue relating the heavy-duty vehicles, and we are really trying to look at those sectors which will be the most difficult to decarbonize and which are struggling also in terms of competitiveness. We need to realize that Europe is subject to significant geopolitical pressures, be it the competition from China, be it the trade instruments used by the United States and other players. So navigating in that and helping to ensure that we maintain the production in Europe, that we can stay the course on decarbonization, and that we can also help create the markets for European products is essential. In terms of these markets, they need to be in Europe as well as international. So we are looking at concluding different partnerships with the global partners, such as through the free trade agreements, a new tool called the Clean Trade Industrial Partnerships, basically to make sure that we have all the material we need for production in Europe, that we can ensure that we have the markets for the products in Europe, and that we also decarbonize in our partner countries. Because altogether, if we are talking Europe having about 6% of global emissions, we need to make sure that decarbonization takes place in the rest of the world, and this is an important instrument that we have. We have developed over the years of experience with the ETS. We have developed various instruments such as the contracts for difference, such as the power purchase agreements to facilitate the de-risking of the finance and the availability of the investments for those companies which are in difficulties. The last I would mention here is the simplified framework for state aid that is directly related to the Clean Industrial Deal, so-called CISAF, that was adopted in summer, and that will ease the conditions for allowing state aid for the energy-intensive companies.
And the last question for you at this point of time, because later on I see many questions are already coming from our audience. How can governments and financial sector provide the right tools, including de-risking capital, so easing the stress on the companies by decision making with the finances to accelerate the green private green investments?
Yeah. Well, I think very much when we are talking about the solutions for decarbonization, we need to see both sides of the equation. We need to see the supply and also the demand. And there, the governments also can play an important role in terms of public procurement. We are also talking about the corporate purchases, for instance, for the automotive industry. So there is a regulation that can help facilitate the markets for the products. I mentioned the Innovation Fund. One thing which we recently successfully rolled out is offering this product for the management of the national funds, where we basically tell the governments we can do the selection of projects, decarbonization projects for you as a service to the member states. So either as an auction or as a grant, we are able to do the procedure, which is automatic and kind of free of charge for the countries, and they can select additional projects at the national level. Important decisions to be made at a national level is the revenues from the ETS. where they are directed, into which projects, and with which conditionality. So very much in the hands of the governments. And then, of course, the whole question of de-risking, how the government, together with the finance sector, can find opportunities for bringing closer the possibility of investment in the clean solutions. One thing I would mention here is also the resilience to climate change, because this is something which is going to be increasingly relevant. Whether the investments in the future are climate resilient, whether we are thinking of a climate which is about 3 degrees warmer already now in Europe, and how these investments will make sure that they are not they are not undermined by the progress of climate change. And this is part of the risk management that the financial sector will be looking at.
Thank you very much for this answer, Jan. Zuzana, let's talk about the financial sector, because EIB is one of the main players in scaling green innovations across Europe. And the question is, how do you do it? So how does the EU Tech Initiative and the EIB's work support the development and scale up of innovative green technologies and investments, of course?
Good afternoon, and yeah, thank you. EIB is the EU bank. We are the climate bank. We are owned by 27 member states, including Slovakia. And we are exactly here to complement all these EU priorities and to help financially with the investments. For your understanding, last year it was around 90 billion euros which were invested through the EIB, and more than or around 60% went to green transformation, green transition, like clean projects, etc. So the bank is here with the offer of different products for the different type of needs and companies. We are here from really the very beginning of idea, startups, scale-ups, through the really development and deployment of the solutions. We are also here to help member states with the big infrastructure projects, needs, etc. It was mentioned here before in the panel before, like need for like connectivity in Europe. It's like energy infrastructure, smart grids, etc. So all these are projects where EIB is investing, projects which are financed by EIB. And one of the main goals are mobilize like private capital. So we are here with like some investments, but the main goal is to mobilize and to have available in Europe the capital which is here. We have from the last days, months, all like reports of Draghi, of Letta, etc. And it's clear that the capital is here. We are just as Europe sitting on it. We are not so risky as other countries, and we need to start working with this capital, not just the financing one, but also like the personal one, etc. So the EIB is here to help bridging all this, to help definitely with the innovation, with the green transition, but also like the digital transition, etc. It's not about green, clean, etc. It's clean tech, digitech, defense tech these days. And all this is connected, and yeah, we are here trying to help companies and the private capital to increase or to raise, to be born, raise, and stay in Europe, which is the main challenge, I would say now, of Europe. How like all these ideas which are here, and we as Europe are really good in innovation, in clean tech, digitech, but we need these companies to stay here and grow here. And this is why, for example, Tech EU initiative is there with the EU. It's really like, it should be the game changer, because within 3 years, EIB will invest 70 billion euros to mobilize more than 250 billion euros private capital. And we will be creating different types of products which are going to be needed
based on the market need. So we will be here with the equity financing, with venture debt, venture capital, funds, financing, etc. And so a lot of investments, a lot of money. Also, what is the advantage is the advisory which EIB is giving into this and helping companies in EU to grow and go further. It was mentioned innovation fund. EIB is here to complement this with the project development assistance. And again, it's tons millions euros being invested through EIB to help companies to prepare the projects, to prepare their strategies, to get the financing at the end. So there are different tools with EIB, and as I say, it's complement. We follow the EU priorities and trying to help financially as a EU financial arm, to move Europe forward and to help companies. And when mentioned EU tech, like the first phase is really investments in clean tech. So we are really going to support small startups to scale up, to allow them scaling up, to allow for new innovative solutions, which will also help, then big companies, corporates with decarbonization, etc. So the first now challenge or the first goal is really clean tech, but it's not just clean tech, as I said, digitech, AI, robotics, semiconductors, critical raw materials. All these are priorities EIB is focusing on during the innovation cycle.
Is there a possibility, because you mentioned the general scale of your activities, and is it possible to mention some concrete example where the finances already did go and helped some project? What kind of?
Definitely, big projects in the area of renewables. The north of Europe, wind farms in Baltics, Poland, South Europe, we have photovoltaics. We are helping small companies, startups with innovative solutions for this sector as well. We have some companies where EIB invested, which then scaled up, but outside of EU. This is why we are now focusing really on scaling up in EU. But for example, it was WeTransfer or Spotify, etc. These companies. We are also investing and helping member states with the energy grids, and we are helping to close this gap of interconnectivity within the member states. So we are investing in big energy companies to go further with the smart grids, with the better connectivity, etc. We are helping with decarbonization. So we are supporting big corporates in chemical industry, steel industry, etc. Again, to innovate, to be less energy, to be less energy demand, to be energy efficient, etc. Another good example, and this is exactly where the way forward is, was BioNTech. We were there at the very beginning when it was almost a startup even before COVID. And then we helped scale up the BioNTech, this joint cooperation with Pfizer, etc. And then it was the first mRNA vaccine for the COVID. So yeah, I think we have many examples, and even further with this increase of financing, I mentioned 70 billion euros, it would mean more than 1,000 new companies yearly to be supported and to be able to go forward.
And what do you think are the biggest challenges in transition when a small project, startup or pilot project wants to grow and wants to scale up, be a big project? So, what are the challenges it has to come through?
definitely the risk and the appetite or non-appetite in Europe for taking risk, and to attract the private investors or private companies, to help growing. So we are also here to de-risk and to use guarantees and other products to help, with this because for like companies with some innovative ideas, it's really a lot of investments at the beginning. So it's big investments needed for scaling up, risk not to be there, de-risking. But then it's also about the connectivity. It's about the infrastructure itself, because with AI and all these techniques, robotics, huge storage clouds, systems, etc., need to be developed. Then it's also about different regulatory setups, and this is why EIB is also one of the priority is the Savings and Investment Union, which is connected with all these topics. This is one of the EIB priorities to help putting forward. So it was like 5. There are challenges. But on the other hand, we have solutions. We just really need to start doing it and to cooperate. This is why EIB is cooperating and very much working with the European Commission, but also national governments, member states, private sector, funds, etc. So it's about cooperation as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it for your answers. And let's move to Martin. Martin, we're going to talk a little bit about nuclear because we mentioned it in prior panel, but you have long worked in a nuclear research. Right now, you are head and leader of Slovak Academy of Science. And I would like to know your opinion. What role do you see for nuclear energy in the broader green transition, especially for countries like Slovakia, that already really rely heavily on it? So if I'm not mistaken, it's 60% of energy mix here in Slovakia is nuclear. So your point.
Yes, so Slovakia is second country in the world in production of nuclear energy per capita. Only France is producing more nuclear energy per capita than Slovakia. So earlier it was Belgium was ahead. However, we start with IMO 3. Mochovce 3, we jumped over Belgium, and we are close to completeness of Mochovce 4. The new nuclear source that the government has announced, we need to consider its only replacement, because it will take 15 years, which is about the time when 2 our reactors that are operational in Jaslovské Bohunice will need to terminate their operation because they're aging. So they will reach the limit, and we will not be able to extend it too much further. So we are talking about 2045 will be the point. So whatever we will build, the big power plant, which is expected to be 1.2 electric megawatt, will be only replacement of existing power plants. So we will not increase the production of energy. However, what is projected that the electricity consumption will be growing. So we need to think about other sources. And there is another option, which is nuclear. These are SMRs, small modular nuclear reactors. And in principle of 2 types that are like a classic, and 4 generation nuclear reactors that would be using the spent nuclear fuel. And Slovakia has a lot of spent nuclear fuel, which is still full of isotopes that can be produced for energy production. It contains more fissile material than natural uranium. So it is there. And with the reactor that can use this, there are so-called minor actinides. If you remember periodic table of elements, it has always 2 rows underneath, so it's the bottom one.
Of course, everybody here
Yeah.
remembers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody has seen it at least once in their life. So these are elements like plutonium, americium, curium that are present in the spent fuel, and we can still use it. So spent nuclear fuel is not waste; it's still valuable source of energy. So, and I don't see any other options if we want to really be green, how to achieve it without nuclear energy. So renewables are very important, but they are much more weather dependent than the nuclear power. Nuclear power is also weather dependent, but much less than these type of sources. So if we want to have a stable grid, and especially I'm not talking about, let's say, heating and so on, I'm talking about industry. I'm talking about electric trains, so we need really stable. We have seen the case of blackout in Spain. Spain is a very specific country, which is it's almost island. So from 3.5 of sides, you have ocean or sea, and there are, I guess, only two high voltage power lines connected to France, and if one of them broke, and then the renewables that are making the grid unstable caused that. And actually already in 2012, there was article in European Physics News where the director of Czech distribution company presented the simulation, what kind of blackouts might Europe solve. So, and we need stabilizing elements, which could be nuclear power plants. We are not talking about huge batteries yet. The technology is not there yet. So, and even I have seen the question is already there about the role of these, sorry, help me, the lanthanoids elements, the rare earths. So we cannot do it without them, and Europe is 100% relies on China supplies. So which is okay till China is selling, but we don't have any other source in the moment for them. So it's clearly in the report of JRC.
But it's mostly because of electromagnets that need those rare earth elements. But you mentioned the fissile sources or the material for the fission. What about thorium, for example? In some countries are trying to make it work as a potentially safer source of nuclear energy. Is there something to it or not?
Yes, the main reason why we are talking here about safety is a non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. So basically, if you use thorium, so the principle is you take the thorium-232 isotope, which absorbs the neutron and becomes uranium-233. And this is the fission material. And you don't fission thorium, you fission uranium-233. And you cannot use uranium-233 for nuclear weapons. You have to trust me, it's complicated why it is, but it's really
okay,
that.
I have to write it down, so I will not do this
while
mistake.
As soon as you have uranium-238 present in the reactor, you can breed plutonium. And if you do it correctly and you separate plutonium-239, you can start a nuclear weapons program. Disadvantage of a thorium cycle is that also it's a source of thorium. So relatively, thorium is slightly more abundant as uranium in Earth crust. However, it's very much spread around. So uranium, typically you have some places where you can mine it. Uranium is very much spread, therefore it appears that it's rare. So there are very few really sources in the world where you can really mine the thorium. And all of them are under control of China, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for this answer. And let's move beyond the nuclear. How can Slovak science and scientists in general contribute to the development of green technologies?
Well, in principle, Slovak Academy of Sciences across it has many research programs that are contributing to this. So if I start, let's say, from National Battery Center, the battery research is done at Slovak Academy of Sciences. Other aspect of this is semiconductor research. This is a big problem in Europe. So really Europe has a bit forgotten about supporting semiconductor research and development and is very much relying on Taiwan. So which in a changing geopolitical situation could be the problem. And we are importing everything, so which means that even the production of, let's say, of semiconductor is strongly contributing to green solutions. Then Slovakia has a great potential in water. So there are many aspects in the research related to water. So it's one of the, I would say, flagships of Slovak Academy of Sciences. The initiative is not the project because we never managed to convince any minister of environment to really support the program Waters, how to protect the waters, how to clean waters. So we have our applications. Probably some of you know the story of River Slana, which is contaminated by water coming from a mine. So it's an institute of geotechnics. However, also the biggest environmental pump that we have in Bratislava is in Vrakuňa. It's a storage of very toxic chemicals. So we are ready to help to government with this. So we have teams that developed a really sustainable way of cleaning it. However, it will take decades to really solve the problem, but it's the way how we can do it. And I would like to mention also social sciences and humanities that we have at Slovak Academy of Sciences. The 21st century, in my opinion, is going to be the century of social sciences and humanities, because we will need to solve the problems that in the moment we even don't know that they could exist, these kind of problems in society, mostly related to climate change.
And very quick, the last question: what is needed to ensure that Slovak science and innovation will be more interlinked and included into the Europe and world in general?
In principle, if we want to build a connection between industry and business in general and the science, the most important thing is the building of the trust. And this is where we have a long way to go. So in the moment, there is not trust at any side of this. And if we want to go beyond this, we need to bring a government into the picture. And to build the trust between the government, it's an extremely difficult task.
Thank you. Thank you, to be honest, for your honesty, actually. And we will move to Mr. Pisu. And the very first question at you, because we would like to see and hear your perspective as a member of OECD or representative of OECD. What policies can governments put into place to encourage the development of green tech?
Thank you for the question and good morning again to everybody. Apologies for not being able with you in Bratislava. I mean, this question is very relevant because the range of policies that are available to governments to push the green transition and develop green technology, I mean, is really wide. In the end, we can probably distinguish two main groups of policies. One is the technology push policies that are those policies that aim to support the development and deployment of green technology through R&D support, subsidies, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, we have the demand pull policies. These are the incentives to boost demand for green products that are produced with the green technologies. Okay, there are technology push policies and demand pull policies. Demand pull policies can be like the public procurement of governments could be used to accelerate and increase the demand, for instance, for green cement, green steel, and then the producer of green of cement and steel may have stronger incentives to apply those green technology to produce green steel and cement. So here there is a difficult balance to achieve between these two different types of policies. I mean, it's very difficult to find a one-size-fits-all policies for all countries. There is no one-size-fits-all approach because the balance between these different types of policy depend on country characteristics like the fiscal space. Some of these policies can be costly, like R&D support, and then also the fiscal capacity of a country here may play a role. The tolerance for taxation, for instance, is another important characteristics that vary across countries, and they may obviously have some important consequence for the possibility of adopting this kind of taxation, green taxation policies. It's important to stress the need to develop probably policy mixes that encompass a pretty wide range of policies, because in the end some convincing evidence shows that there can be synergies between different policies. One example is this could involve carbon taxes. Carbon taxes in isolation, no? To be effective, carbon taxes in isolation will need to reach extremely high level. Some models, for instance, say that to decarbonize our economies, carbon taxes in isolation will need to reach like 800 euro, 1,000 euro per ton of CO2. These are extremely high level. So by combination of policies that allow governments to combine carbon taxes with technology support policies, with public procurement, etc., may allow for carbon taxes to be equally effective in reducing emissions, but at much lower level. A lower level that is more realistic to achieve. So I would like to stress the need for these combination of policies that, however, need to be country-specific because of the need to also to build also social support for this kind of policy. The social support, the public acceptability of these policies are important, and we need also the right financial conditions and financial policies to make sure that private capital can contribute to the green transition.
Thank you. What financing conditions or incentives have you seen work best to accelerate adoption?
Yeah, that's thanks for this question again. Here I would like to stress the importance of well-designed climate-related financial disclosure policy, and the need to increase market transparency around the climate risk and the transition risks that firms face. Why I'm speaking about these issues? I'm speaking about these issues because private capital or private investors need information about the transition risks, the climate risks that firms will face. The risk for stranded assets, the risk for the policy risks also that come from green policies that in the end may change over time as well. So to assess the risk is to price the risks effectively. To price the risk effectively, it means that risk will be in the end reflected in the interest rate, for instance, that banks may set on their loans, can be reflected in the interest rates that bonds may, the coupon of bonds will bear. To price the transition risk effectively, market participants need information about the carbon intensity of firms, the carbon intensity of the products they produce, the carbon intensity of the different projects. And public authorities at the same time have an important role, as it was mentioned before, I believe by the EIB representative, to the risk private capital. So there is obviously an interaction here between the public and the private sectors that can be exploited to make sure that the financing conditions for the green transition can improve.
Thank you very much. And the last question before I ask the questions from the audience. How important is carbon accounting and product level carbon intensity metrics in creating a level playing field for green innovation?
Carbon accounting, we see carbon accounting as the foundations to provide the informations that investors will need to price transition risks. For carbon accounting, we mean obviously the structure, the computation method that allow firms to follow in the end, even along the supply chain, the carbon that is emitted in different production process. It can be useful then to compute the carbon intensity of the carbon footprint of different products, of cement, steel, and other different products downstream the supply chain. There are numerous initiatives. On this side, there are really positive news because there are many private sector initiatives, for instance, from the Global Concrete Cement Association, from World Steel, from the Together for Sustainability. There is an initiative covering the chemical sector in Europe and elsewhere, and they are moving in this direction to try to set up these carbon accounting methodologies that will allow the computation of carbon intensity matrix, carbon footprints of the different products. At the same time, there is a risk that these different initiatives that may be more or less developed in different parts of the world may end up setting up standards, procedures that are partly incompatible with each other or in different parts of the world. It is a risk. This is a risk because it risks fragmenting international markets, fragmenting international supply chains. For instance, for a small open economy like Slovakia, this could be extremely dangerous. Many of the initiatives as well overlap with policy mandated monitoring, reporting, verification system like the monitoring, reporting, verification system of the European ETS, but also there is an ETS in British Columbia, for instance. China is setting up an ETS. There is a specific monitoring, reporting, verification system for emissions in these different systems that are not equivalent. What I'm saying that there is a need to make this system to speak to each other, to make this system interoperable. For interoperability, I mean the capacity of the system to speak to each other, to reduce the need for firms to collect information multiple times, one time for each of these systems. If a firm collects information, for instance, considering European ETS rules, okay, this information ideally should also be useful with appropriate rule to be used in the context of other monitor, report, verification system in other markets. So the need for interoperability is paramount in these initiatives because it will be very difficult, or if not impossible, to set up a global standards. And the best option we have is that of interoperability. The OECD, in the Inclusive Forum of Carbon Mitigation Approaches, we are working in this area. We identify the different building blocks that of the different monitor, reporting, verification system in different jurisdictions that would be to be not harmonized but aligned so that the different system can communicate with each other. And I stop here and thank you very much.
Grazie mille, Mr. Mauro Pisu. But I'm going to continue with the questions from our audience, and maybe, Mauro, the first one will be addressed to you, and of course, anybody else who would like to answer, please add your opinion to this. Chinese steelmaker HBIS Group now exports 10,000 plus tons of hydrogen-based green steel to Italy by the end of August 2025. Has China won the EU green race?
Well, that's again an interesting question. I think China is a good example of the combination of technology push and demand pull policies. And we know that China economy relies quite a lot still on carbon for many others, but they made huge progress on green technologies at the same time. I think China is a good combination, is a good example of the power of combining technology push policy and demand pull policies. And for the reason probably they made such big advances in this technology, including hydrogen. I wouldn't like to conclude that China has won this race, so probably my answer would be negative in this sense. And I'm sure the European economies can play, can catch up and play a big role in this area with the right policy mix.
Thank you. Would you like somebody to add something? Okay, so we can move to Mr. Dusik. ETS funds go to environmental funds of the Slovak Ministry of Environment. They sit there mostly idle. How do you make sure that ETS2 money will be used? Mr. Dusik, that's a question to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, as I mentioned, ETS revenues are a major source for decarbonization, and that will be the same for ETS2. We should also be mindful that the social climate fund that comes together with ETS2 will be financed through the revenues of ETS2. So it's the stick coming with the carrot together, and there are clear conditionalities on for what the ETS2 revenues should be used. They should be used to decrease the carbon intensity of transport and building sector. And we are now reviewing the social climate plans. We are still waiting for the ones for Slovakia and for many others, but we will be overseeing making sure that this money does not sit somewhere or is not used for other purposes, but especially in these two sectors which are socially sensitive. We will want to make sure that the money actually gets to the people, those who need it most, and that will be able to find solutions for using less carbon. And I'll have to excuse myself for my next commitment. Thank you very much for your invitation and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dusik. Huge applause to you. All right, I wanted actually this other question sent to Mr. Dusik, but he's leaving. But maybe recently 2 Romanian, 1 Polish, 1 Czech, and 1 Hungarian steam plant closed down. Are CO2 reductions due to ETS or due to deindustrialization now? So probably nobody. Okay, no problem.
Maybe I can just go from a different perspective, but. There are money and investments for decarbonization. We have through the Commission, we have ETS1, we have modernization funds, we have complement investments from the bank. So it's, and here, for example, in Slovakia, but also Czech Republic, I often hear, instead of let's go, let's do it. It's still the discussion here, like, what a Green Deal, is it something we like, there is still a discussion if it makes sense. So I think it's a strategy. Europa decided 2050, zero emissions continent, etc. So, and we have tools how to achieve it. So it's about, doing it, and ETS2, fine. There will be again other possibilities and other instruments how to achieve and how to help really the ones who are the most impacted and affected. It's the same with ETS1. It's the really heavy industry which is being affected, but there are many tools for this industry to overcome it and to move forward.
Thank you very much.
Let's take it as a challenge and not a risk.
Yeah, we accept the challenge. And the very last, it's another question. It's a nice touch. We trust science. Sending a big thank you to SAV for all your work. That's, of course, addressed to you. Mr. Venhart, not everybody in Slovakia thinks that being corn is bad, so we thank for all and everything you do. Okay, thank you very much. Huge applause for our panelists. Grazie mille, Mr. Pisu. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ďakujeme veľmi pekne naozaj. Ďakujeme. Môžete už zbehnúť, pred nami je obed, ale ešte tam nie sme úplne, pretože ja by som ešte na tomto mieste, samozrejme, chcel vám všetkým poďakovať, že ste prišli, ale to si ešte nechám na záver, pretože teraz som veľmi rád, my sme už viackrát spomínali Zuzku Serinovú sme viackrát spomínali a teraz by som poprosil, aby sa ku mne pridala. Ako policy manager z MČM Slovakia, veľký potlesk pre ňu a dámu, ktorá so svojím tímom pripravila aj toto naše stretnutie.
Ďakujem kolegom všetkým, ďakujem Roman. Ja si dovolím ešte úplne, že 2 minútky vám zobrať pred skvelým obedom, ktorý nás čaká vo Verku a pred skvelými workshopmi, ktoré nás čakajú. O tom vám Roman ešte povie. Túto konferenciu usporiadávame počas veľkého NYC Climate Week. Počuli ste o tom, že sa také niečo deje každý rok v New Yorku? Perfektné. Tento rok je už 15. Je tam 900 takýchto konferencií, aké máme tu a teraz. Takže sme si s MČom povedali, aj s mojou šéfkou a pani riaditeľkou, ktorá podporuje tieto skvelé brave nápady, že poďme byť súčasťou toho. Takže 26. septembra, teraz v piatok, o 3. hodine po obede budeme vysielať live z New Yorku zo slovenského konzulátu a urobíme si taký wrap-up NYC Week, čo to tam vlastne je, čo sa to tam deje a pozrime si na taký outlook, čo nás čaká v rámci Sustainability Goals aj vo svete a nie len na Slovensku a v Európe. Takže budem rada, ak sa pripojíte, link zdieľame, môžete sa pripojiť a zaregistrovať už na našej stránke teraz v MČM, ale budeme ho zdieľať všade možne, takže určite si ho nájdete a keď nie, tak prosím napíšte mi. Takže ďakujem veľmi pekne a teším sa na to, že snáď prinesieme US aj sem vám, našim členom. Ďakujeme.
Zuzka, ďakujeme ti veľmi pekne. Šťastnú cestu zajtra. Ráno o 7 už letí, ani sa poriadne nevyspí a už bude musieť makať. Každopádne, ale ďakujeme Zuzke veľmi pekne a samozrejme všetkým, ktorí pripravovali naše dnešné stretnutie. Predtým, ako sa definitívne rozlúčim, len chcem pripomenúť, že hneď po našom obede, Zuzi, ty si moja šéfka teraz, takže trošku sme sklze, dáme to 2:15, začnú workshopy, alebo necháme o 2:00, musia zostať, žiaľ, OK. Takže presne o 2:00, ospravedlňujem sa, trošku sme natiahli, trošku som bol príliš aktívno zvedavý v niektorých veciach, takže moja chyba, ospravedlňujem sa, ak to nestihnete úplne za 3/4 hodinu, ale myslím, že by to malo ísť. Pretože potom nasledujú hneď 2 workshopy, ešte raz separátne, čiže museli ste sa, alebo mohli ste sa len na jeden z nich prihlásiť. Social in ESG and experience that changes perspective, that's the first one, alebo to je ten prvý a ten druhý. Transform your business sustainability business simulation. Takže budete si môcť nasimulovať takú tú udržateľnosť v rámci biznisu. Ja som nesmierne rád, že ste dnes prišli a navyše veľmi si vážime, že ste dnes prišli a nielen my, ale aj naši partneri od Hauerlandu, ktorí majú taký malý stánok hneď pri recepcii, alebo teda mieste, kde ste sa registrovali a taký maličký darček ste si všetci našli a zároveň, keď zabehnete k ním do toho stánku, dostanete ďalší nejaký darček. Takže ak máte chuť a máte radi a ste pozitívne naladení na darčeky, tak viete, kde ich nájdete. Ešte raz ďakujem veľmi pekne, boli ste fantastickí, ďakujem za všetky vaše doplňujúce otázky a verím, že sa vidíme niekedy. Na budúce, majte sa krásne, zostaňte zdraví, dovidenia.